Welcome back to Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches. I'm Richard.
Noah.
And today we're talking about a movie. Neither one of us know why we're talking about it.
Genuinely, I swear you asked me if I had seen this movie and then said, when I said I had only seen pieces of it, I swear you were like, let's just do that.
So, yeah, I saw it on the list, and we have 3 separate lists going of movies that we've wanted to see. And I came across one of them, and I realized there were 2 things left, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
But what I don't remember is which one of us asked for it. And I thought you did, and you thought I did.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But anyways, the 1970 Richard Altman film. It is based on the 1968 Richard Hooker novel MASH.
Did we announce it? It's MASH.
I thought we did. Did we announce it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
So we're going to talk about MASH.
We're talking about MASH, the movie,
MASH, the
not
movie.
the TV show, which a lot of people don't know exists. At least nowadays.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize the novel exists.
Yeah.
And now Richard Hooker is the pen name of I believe, a real Army surgeon who wrote the novel based on his experiences in the Korean War.
Yeah.
So I do remember a weird stat reading a long time ago that this was a book that was rejected by something like 23 publishers before it actually made it.
I believe it.
So is this your first time seeing MASH beginning to end?
It is my first time seeing... So, I mean, you know this, but I grew up watching the TV series.
Yes.
Because Mom would watch the TV series. And so the only prior knowledge I had was the TV series. Which obviously I think a lot of people vaguely have heard of it. It was the most watched... one of the most watched programs in American television history, the finale of it.
Yeah, the finale was
one of the most watched, because it went on for 12, 14 seasons or something like that.
13, I believe.
It was long for that type of show. So I had never seen the entirety of this film. I had only seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
So, and now I see why. I see why I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
So what did you think?
Overall, yeah, I can. It was enjoyable.
Okay.
It was enjoyable. Hit a little too close to home for my liking, which I'll probably have to explain here in a little bit. And also, there's just quirks of old movies that I find as I am seeing more, I find annoying.
Okay.
One of them being how many times you can hear the extras talking in the background, and it overlaps. If I didn't have subtitles on from beginning to end, I would not have understood a single word being said in this movie.
Okay,
because there was just so much background noise.
Yes.
It's just a product of the time, but I mean, I work on sets all the time, and extras are quiet. All that noise in the background is added in post. Sit and watch what they're saying, what they're mouthing. It's hilarious. If you're ever watching just for extras, it's hilarious.
I think that was an artistic choice.
I think so.
To try and capture what was going on amidst all the chaos of what life was like in a field hospital.
Yeah, I also kind of wish that they had at least kind of dulled it.
Yes.
During the really up close shots.
Yes.
It just was very hard to discern what was being said without the subtitles assisting.
It was very distracting.
It was very distracting.
Yeah.
And the reason I have an issue with that is because there are some golden jokes that you would miss if you were just listening to it and didn't have closed captions. There are some golden jokes in this film.
Since this movie is over 50 years old, and we don't have to worry about spoilers. What are your favorite one-liners?
Oh, how are these two in a position of responsibility in this hospital? And Hawkeye turns to Hot Lips Houlihan and says, "I was drafted."
Yeah. Hot Lips asked the question. It was actually Father Mulcahy who.
Oh, was it Father Mulcahy
Father
who
Mulcahy
says it?
that,
Oh, I thought it was Hawkeye who said I was drafted.
And
that's even better.
So in that Father Mulcahy from the movie was Rene Auberjonois.
Yeah. French.
Yeah, we've never gotten his name right.
Never.
Excellent.
Ever. Excellent actor.
Excellent actor.
Excellent actor.
And
that character is the exact same movie too. And it's not the same actor, but I don't think it's the same actor, but movie to TV show.
Yeah, the character.
It was indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Indistinguishable. It was hilarious.
He obviously in the TV show and the purpose of this conversation is not to compare the two.
No,
but in the TV show,
it's bound to happen.
Over 13 seasons, they were able to go into a more in-depth character exploration of Father Mulcahy than they could in a movie where he was a supporting character.
So the thing about it, so for anyone who hasn't watched or doesn't know anything about MASH, MASH is about the 407th Army Field Hospital in the Korean War. And it follows the surgeons, therefore the officers, and just kidding. Just kidding. It follows the surgeons of a MASH unit, which is a mobile army surgical hospital. They would move with the battle lines, and they were equipped to pack up and move at a moment's notice, depending on the shift in positions on the battlefield. Hence the mobile in the name. So that's what a MASH unit was. They weren't actually phased out until much more recently, if I remember correctly. They transitioned from MASH to CASH in like the maybe 80s, 90s, something like that. They were used for a while, essentially.
Right.
And it's where Captain Hawkeye Pierce is probably the most recognizable name in the whole thing.
Yes.
Alan Alda played him in the TV show and has become an iconic character / role since. There's Trapper, there's Radar, Henry Blake, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake,
right.
Hot Lips Houlihan, Frank Burns, and just so many others. Radar O'Reilly, same actor. That's the actor.
He's the only actor who was in both. The movie.
And this film's kind of weird because it's there's no overarching plot really. It's just kind of watching Hawkeye's time in Korea.
Yes.
Because they used a program, which actually a variation of it still exists to this day, where they would draft doctors and send them out on short, like 5-6 month rotations. And you could stay longer if you wanted. And then they would send them back to go do their job in the civilian life. They actually still do that to a certain extent. They recruit doctors and nurses out of medical school, and then they recruit them into the Army Reserves, and then they send them on 3-month stints overseas.
Gotcha.
To just fill in supporting roles as doctors and nurses in hospitals and TMCs. It's kind of funny that's still, this is where I'm saying it hit close to home, because I worked with a lot of these people. I worked with a lot of people who are doing something very similar to what these doctors and nurses are doing in this movie and therefore TV show.
Just not in combat.
Yeah, just not in combat. Although they still do, if need be, obviously. So so that's like one of the things that was like, you can tell this is written by someone who has experienced the military side, because it just gets, there's so much more from there. Go.
Not remembering why this actually, came up on our list of things to watch, I sat down and I rewatched this movie, and I've probably seen it half a dozen times now.
Yeah.
And I was reacquainted with the fact that I don't like this movie.
You don't?
I don't like this movie, and there's a couple of different reasons. But with apologies to my friend Laura, who gave me this wonderful button that I was supposed to wear tonight.
Oh yeah,
and forgot it in the store.
Oh great!
It says the book was better than the movie. I have read the novel MASH a dozen times.
Okay.
It is a book that I can pick up and read and reread over and over and over again.
Okay.
This movie is a faithful adaptation of the book.
Really?
It is really a faithful adaptation of the book.
That's weird. Okay, this is getting weird.
It is. And it doesn't work on film.
It doesn't work on film?
For me, it doesn't. Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
There's going to be a generation of people who are going to be throwing things at their TV sets right now or their computer screens because this was nominated for 5 Oscars. This was an award-winning film. It was very popular.
I can see why.
And it launched a TV franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it just doesn't work on film. It works better in print.
Okay.
And I like everything in the story except for the end of the storyline, the football sequence.
Oh man, that football sequence! I was ready to shut it off because I'm like, this is the end, right? This is the last thing they're doing. They win the football game. They cheat and they win the football game.
Well, both sides are cheating.
Obviously both sides were cheating, but I'm like, I've literally seen this plot line in the show before, so I was like, I knew what was going to happen before.
Because it came from the original source material, right?
Yeah.
So I think my only question for it is, did that really happen? And if I had, one question for the author, and I haven't researched it, did the football game really happen?
It probably did.
But it
probably did.
Yeah,
I can tell you, Army Shenanigans. It probably did.
And it's the thing. Donald Sutherland was a fantastic actor. He was quirky. He was offbeat. Not certain he was the best choice for Hawkeye Pierce, but I
didn't hate it.
Right.
I'll be real. I didn't hate it. And of course, I came in with the bias of Alan Alda, who again is the quintessential Hawkeye Pierce,
right? Because
of the show. I didn't mind it, actually. I didn't mind it. There was still that similar lackadaisical attitude.
Oh, and the total and complete lack of respect.
Yeah, the total and complete lack of respect for the military rules and regulations and everything else. But...
Well, so, going into the movie, I certainly was, when I first saw it, which was decades ago, biased by the TV series. I had seen the TV series long before I ever read the novel. I read the novel. I was thoroughly entertained. It was funny. And I read some of the other MASH novels. They were nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
But, whatever. The stories that didn't make the first draft, you tried to put them in subsequent drafts, stuff like that. But
that's why he went through 23 publishers. Which ones were?
Donald Sutherland's whistle.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Drove me up a wall the first time I saw the movie and continued to drive me up a wall this last time I saw the movie. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just about everything about it. Now, their performances, Elliot Gould is always good.
Yeah.
He was fun.
Yeah.
Tom Skerritt. As a very young Tom Skerritt.
Yeah, very.
Who, if you ask your mother, she will tell you got far better looking with age than in that movie right there. The performances, were fine.
Oh,
they did what they were supposed to do, but it didn't hit.
It didn't hit the same.
So I started thinking to myself, do I need to reevaluate changes that Hollywood writers make in movies and why?
Yeah.
Because I've always been somewhat critical of unnecessary changes, but this one just didn't. The beats didn't hit.
Okay.
And in its popularity, when it came out, I'm wondering how many people had read the novel.
So the thing about this, I have problems with movies similar to this because again, it's not a complete plot. It's a series of events.
Yes.
More like an anthology, but not really. It's just a series of little it's like side quests. It's just a series of side quests.
It's a series of vignettes.
Yeah, it's a series of vignettes, and I feel like as a movie, those are very hit or miss in general.
Mhm.
Like they can be really good, or they can just fall flat.
Right.
I'm not the biggest fan of that style in general, but I can see why people enjoy it, and I can see why this movie is well regarded.
Yes.
Again, but I feel like what you're describing is potentially the fact that it was the book vignettes as well.
Yes.
Then I feel like it always works better in book form.
It's like a collection of short stories, you know, and
featuring the same cast and just going in a timeline. Right. I feel like that works better in book form than it does in movie form in general. I feel like it's a safer. I feel like it's safer in book form than it is in movie form.
So, yes, we reviewed the movie, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Yeah, the first skit. Yeah,
the first skit.
A series of skits.
What's the name of that movie? I think
it's the Ballad of Buster Scruggs and Other Assorted Tales.
That's it. Right. Yeah. That's it. And those were a collection of vignettes, a collection of short stories, but they worked not because they had the same character running through that, but they had a common theme running through it, and that common theme is what tied them all together.
Yep.
And that worked, and it worked very well on screen.
Yeah.
You know, this is just an odd one. Robert Duvall played Frank Burns. And that Frank Burns was very serious. That was a heavy-handed.
Very. So this is where it's where I kind of enjoyed it and also kind of didn't.
Okay.
Because I worked in what is essentially the grandchild of the MASH unit.
Okay.
So, like, there was originally field hospitals, and then there were MASH units, and then there were cash units. And when I came into the Army, I was originally put in a cash unit, which came after. It was kind of the replacement for a MASH.
Right.
And then we retransitioned into field hospitals just recently with all the combined, basically a field hospital with all the combined lessons learned from everything else. So, and being medical corps, it kind of does hit home. First off, Hawkeye's not caring about military rules and regulations. That's partially, that's a character choice. Like that's how they wrote the character, but that's medical corps.
Really?
Medical corps in general is far more lax than big Army.
Okay.
And across the board, medical corps is far more chillax. Because if you think about it, if in normal Army, if a sergeant walks up, if you're talking to a sergeant or you're talking to an officer and you need to stand at parade rest or attention or whatever until you're told to drop it, then think about that in a hospital or a clinic setting. The enlisted will never get anything done because you're constantly running up and down halls. Everyone is constantly intersecting each other. So if I have to at ease make way every single person because everyone outranks me because they're all docs and nurses, so they automatically outrank me, I'm not ever going to get to my destination. So we don't even acknowledge each other unless we have to, and we can just push past each other. And as long as you in general are talking to people above you with respect, sir, ma'am, sergeant, whatever, no one cares if you're not at ease or if you're not at parade rest or if you're not anything else. It's far more chillax in that manner. It's far more casual. And it's because of the nature of your work environment that you have to be.
Right.
So it was always funny watching like infantry captains and colonels walk in and see like lower enlisted just walk up to a major, their nurse, and go, "Hey ma'am, I got a question for you." And just in total like normal discussion, they're looking at it like but it like I said, this movie kind of hits home. They even, and I'm sure this was not intentionally based on it, but in the dentist storyline, which might I say has not aged well. at all. That
No.
storyline has not aged well.
No,
He
no.
name drops the 325. That was my unit.
Oh, was it really?
The 325. Now, they didn't specify what it was, but after World War II, the 325 was a general hospital.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that was pulled from reality or if they just threw 3 random numbers in there, but I was like, let's go. They even name dropped Sedalia, Missouri. Like halfway through. They're like over the radio. He's like, the VFW post has donated X amount of whatever from Sedalia, Missouri. I'm just like, wow, it's hitting home in several areas. And also, that is kind of very similar. Obviously, we weren't breaking all the rules and regulations,
sure,
but like the relaxed atmosphere,
right?
That's medical core, man. That's medical core.
So, would it be safe to say you really enjoyed this just because of that personal connection to it?
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. There's the added bonus of the just dark edge that this has.
It was pretty.
It has a very.
It is
dark
considered
edge.
a black comedy.
It is considered, a very. It's far darker. It's far edgier. It's far raunchier than the TV show. Obviously,
very definitely raunchier than the TV show.
But that edge of just casually flirting with very dark humor is, again, that's a product of the just being in the field of medicine. There's a lot of, if you talk to EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, and any lower enlisted from the medical corps,
dark humor
we're all going to have that edge.
Gets you through all of that.
There's a very dark edge to a lot of their humor. That
black humor is a coping mechanism, and it's
nothing else.
Yeah, it's a necessary.
I think that's the thing that this movie. That's what occurred to me at the end. Is it felt like there was like it was trying to say something about, like, maybe it was trying to have a little commentary about the environment that these people would have found themselves in, the conditions they would have found themselves in. And I think it's perfectly mirrored in like the Hawkeye Trapper versus like Houlihan and Burns. Two people who are very much strict army regulation. We grew up in the military. We joined the military as soon as we could. We follow every rule to the T. And then these two who don't even want to be here were drafted, and all they care about is saving lives. And
they're technically better doctors.
Very.
Right.
Yeah.
Henry Blake was proficient. He was good.
Yes.
He was a solid surgeon. Frank Burns is always portrayed as someone who is medically incompetent.
Very.
And
here's the thing. Fun fact: 90% of the military's medical capabilities is in the reserves, aka civilian trained. A lot of them are like I guess 70% of the Army's medical capabilities are made up of reservist units. So these are the people who drill once a month, and then they go work their civilian jobs, which are in the medical field.
Right.
And the Army knows that it's probably a better idea to have people who are doing this day in and day out as a lot of your medical support.
Gotcha. Oh, and that makes sense.
Which is reflected in this, because everyone they bring in who's a civilian seems to be very, very competent.
So the one thing that is it's a Hollywood trope, but unfortunately there is a real life component to it. So I'm not claiming persecution here by any means. Something that the television show did better than the movie is contrasted. You have did I say contrasted? You have a contrast between someone like Frank Burns, who is, religious and is basically acting hypocritically.
Yeah.
Cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
In love with Margaret, etc. And then you have, in contrast, Father Mulcahy.
Yeah.
Who is a devout, dedicated man of the cloth. He's kind, he's compassionate, he's flawed.
Yep.
We see his flaws in television, the whole bit. You don't have the time in the movie to show those contrasting images, and the book doesn't show those contrasting images. So Frank Burns is just a religious hypocrite.
Yeah.
And that is I'm tired of that trope. I'm tired of that just being something that gets portrayed, even though you can't live down Jimmy Swaggart. And some of the other people.
I mean, there's different ways of portraying the same type of. You want to portray someone as a hypocrite. There's multiple ways to do that. I will say that the movie doesn't put down Mulcahy.
No.
They don't disrespect the character.
They just don't. Yeah, that character didn't have any meat really in the storyline. Yeah. Although the tense scene of them joking about like, oh, this is where YouTube might get mad at me if I recount this scene. You're talking about the painless pole scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up the disclaimer right here, just in case. Skip to a time if you're sensitive to self-unalive topics. You've been warned. I'm avoiding the keywords that get you flagged by YouTube. That whole scene in the tent where he comes in, he's like, I think I'm gonna and everyone's sitting there going, oh well, let me think, a bullet would be the most efficient, but you risk extra damage and living through it. I'm sure we can find you something. That was the joke that was like, okay, yeah, this is that dark edge of medical.
Sure, because nobody took him seriously when he walked in.
Exactly,
and said it.
No one took him seriously.
So one of the things, if you watch MASH, if you haven't seen it, you watch it, you have to understand that it is a product of its time.
Oh, very. It's not only that. This is a product. This is a 70s movie made about the 1950s.
Yes.
So it's doubling down on outdated
beliefs, outdated perspectives,
outdated topics,
and things that you could not make.
It's transitioned from being. I was actually talking about this with some people earlier this week because I was talking about the jokes and the type of humor and how they've aged poorly, and the fact that you can see where these were made as actual jokes to be like just funny jokes at the time that it was made. Now they're funny because it's so cringy how outdated they are.
Yes.
Like you're laughing at how outdated it is.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I view it. I'm not laughing because I find the topic itself funny. I'm laughing because, holy crap, I can't believe this was okay. This was okay to say.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how I was laughing at a good 50% of the jokes in this movie. Where I'm just like, wow. That's just completely outdated.
So does it put some of the jokes I crack in better perspective? Because I think I've carried some of that because I grew up with all of that. That was
you always make fun of those people.
Oh, I do.
People who truly believe that. We talked about this during the Blazing Saddles. The Blazing Saddles thing.
I make fun of the bigots that I grew up with.
Exactly.
By cracking jokes that they would say seriously.
It's insane what these people would believe.
Oh, it's stunning. And there's probably still people in the world who believe that way.
100%, but
so MASH the movie, we've actually managed to talk about this without actually giving away any major spoilers of the movie, but I would say
actually there's really not much to spoil in terms of the plot because there kind of isn't a plot.
Well, yeah, but the details of like painless pole, the best equipped dentist in the army. Yeah. You just take a guess at how well equipped he is. And then watch the movie and see what they do with that particular storyline. But but I would say get MASH.
I would say find it, watch it.
Take it for what it
is, obviously. But the acting all around, the performances at least. are
Yes.
worth watching for.
Yes.
And there's still a lot of just good jokes in it. There's still a lot of just fantastic jokes. I think the golf scene where the helicopter lands is like golfing, that whole sequence. I literally rewound, video recorded it, sent it to my buddy and said, why didn't we think of this? Why didn't we pull this?
I brought a driver and 3 golf balls and 3 tees down to Antarctica, and on a Sunday afternoon, I
wasn't talking about the golf.
I think I violated the Antarctic Treaty. I went out to the edge of the pack ice. And is there a statute of limitations?
There probably is. Yeah.
My only regret is that they weren't good drives.
I wasn't talking about the golf. I've got pictures of me golfing. In the desert.
I thought that's what you were referring to, helicopter coming down there.
No. I was talking about when the dude comes back up the hill and they're like, are you Trapper? And Trapper's immediately like, oh man, you're not looking so good.
Oh,
Hawkeye takes the papers and starts figuring out what he wants.
Yep. Okay.
That is what I was referring to.
Gotcha.
Right. Golf, we had a driving range.
Oh, that's good. All right.
It was right next to a road. So the problem was, it was literally right up against the road, so people would come up the road. So you had to be usually call out car and stop, but some people wouldn't see it in time, so the drive. Many a windshield were cracked at that driving range. MASH, go watch it. Have you seen it? What do you think?
I would love to know, have you read the book and seen the movie, and do you agree with me that the book is better, that the stuff doesn't translate to film well?
I might have to go just read the book at some point.
And then
I've seen it on your shelf.
My other question is, what do you think about how well those jokes aged or didn't age?
Yeah.
And and the other thing is, can a modern audience look at a movie from the past and take it for what it was at the time without absolutely condemning it based on modern standards?
Yes. It's what's the quote? It's what is it? It's unfair to judge history by modern standards, or it's kind of unreasonable. You got to account for differences. Not saying that they were right. It's just if you do that, you're going to be angry at everything.
We don't need to call balls and strikes and everything. We know what we should and should not be doing based on our modern standards and what we've learned from the past, but it doesn't mean we change our record of the past. We keep the record of the past as it is.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because it's probably the most honest way of looking at it. Let's not rewrite history.
Yeah. And remember, one day we're going to be the past. They're going to be looking at us the same way they're looking at we're looking at them.
Wow, how does Jimmy Carr say it? He said the joke that gets him canceled
has already been told.
Was told 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to do a what did he call it? A comic autopsy? Something like that, They're going to go through a YouTube clip, figure out what to destroy him on that he said 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So.
MASH. Give it a try. Let us know what you think in the comments down below.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches.
And we'll see you next time.